What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another video. So something I always talk about here on the channel is peace control, and if you've watched my videos for any length of time really, you'll know how important peace control is to your overall gameplay. And that's why in today's video I'll be doing my updated guide on how to master peace control in Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 4 and future seasons. This video should cover everything you need to know in order to consistently peace control people in Fortnite and get easy kills as a result. Before we get into it though, if you find this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it, and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. I've been grinding out tips and tricks videos and I don't plan on stopping, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss out. As well as that, consider using code TECHO in the item shop as it's 100% free and it seriously helps your boy out a ton. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So starting off this video, I just want to take a minute to explain what peace control is, why it's so useful, and give a brief example. If you're not familiar with it, peace control is basically the act of controlling the fight by utilizing your builds and edits. Through peace control, you're able to get your opponent caught in your builds, take a smart peek, and win the fight. Peace control is the most effective way to get safe kills in box fights and build fights, which is why you'll find pretty much every single pro player using it. So with that in mind, I want to give you two quick examples of some really good peace control plays. These clips are both from Polarized and NA East Pro, who is just an all-around crazy player. So starting off this first clip, Polarized is in a fight and a player is behind a wall one box away from him. So what Polarized does here is he shoots the wall from a box away and gets control of the wall, and he gets an easy kill by editing it open since his opponent doesn't have anywhere to go. This was a super clean kill since he already had a good peek with the ramp, and overall it was a super simple yet effective example of a smart use of peace control. What he did was he controlled the only piece between them and his opponent literally could do nothing. Onto the second clip though, and this was actually about 10 seconds after the last one. Polarized hears a player nearby and he jumps into a cone to find that the player is literally right next to him. So what he does is edits through, walls the player off, edits a wall for a right hand peek, and then full boxes the person using two cones and wrapping walls around him. From there, with a super clean right hand peek, he gets a shot for 125, and then he finishes off the kill super smoothly, super easily, because the player literally had nowhere to go. After all, the player had zero control over any piece around them. So hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of what's possible with peace control. Obviously these are only two examples, but peace control varies so much more, and next up in the video I'm going to get into some of the best practice methods so you can actually learn peace control for yourself. So getting into our first practice method for your peace control, and we've got probably the most popular peace control map in the game, which is Raider464's peace control practice map V3. This map is basically the go-to for peace control practice, and that's for good reason. Raider's peace control map features over 25 different scenarios you can use to improve your peace control. These scenarios range from basic peace control, aka some easy scenarios that are more geared towards beginners. It also has a bunch of normal peace control drills for regular players, and then it has peace control tunnels, which are basically tunnels that you go through while building and editing in front of you in order to get used to doing some of the movements that are involved in peace control. Overall, this map is super well rounded and has an absolute ton of stuff you can do. You definitely won't be running out of things to practice for quite some time. What I recommend doing in Raider's map, and what I find works best for a lot of people, is selecting a handful of different scenarios, usually 3 to 5 of them, each time you get on. For each of those scenarios, run them non-stop for a couple of minutes, usually 5 minutes or so, but it depends on your preference, and then move on to the next one. This is easy to do since the scenarios run for a super long time as well, and from there you're basically able to get a ton of variety in while also having some solid structure, and you can choose different scenarios to work on each time you get on the game. Over time, you'll have gotten through every single scenario, and you'll basically be practicing and perfecting the peace control moves you already know, and that's ultimately the goal with this map. So with that said, Raider's peace control map is absolutely incredible, so I'll put the code up on screen right now if you want to give it a shot. Moving on to our next map though, and next up we've got yet another Raider464 map, which is Raider464's Mechanics Training Map V3. Specifically for the sake of this video, we're going to be looking at the Peace Control X Peak Training section, which is sort of like a modified version of normal peace control practice. And yes, there are a ton of other scenarios in the map that you can use to improve your mechanics, but this is the one we're focusing in on. What I love about this is that it helps you to practice using peace control in the most optimal manner possible, which involves getting a good peek and getting a safe shot off. What this map does, which is different from the other map, is that it actually requires you to peek minimally in order to get the kill. The sentry you're killing is basically able to shoot you if you peek for too long, just like a normal player would, and that means that you have to be smart about how you actually edit and go for shots, otherwise you're going to be punished for it just like you would in a real game. You have 3 options to choose from here. You have the off variation where you don't get shot at all, you have the normal variation where you get shot after 0.2 seconds of being exposed, or you have the hard mode where you get shot after 0.15 seconds of being visible. Basically, with that in mind, what'll happen in this map is you'll be running through 30 randomized peace control scenarios, much like the ones in Raider's peace control map, except for the fact that it's completely random. And basically, you're supposed to run through it, get a good shot off, rinse and repeat. This will help you to consistently get great peaks when you go for peace control, and this will make an enormous difference when you're using peace control against real players who actually have the habit of shooting back at you. Because believe it or not, real players tend to do that. So with that said, if you want to give this map a shot, I'll put the code up on screen right now. Moving on to our third and final map for this video though, and next up we've got a map by the content creator Tito, which is Tito's realistic edit / peace control map V4. This map is also a great map for practicing your piece control because it has a ton of unique scenarios as well as beginner and advanced sections for both editing and piece control. One thing I really love about this map is the editing sections, which basically involve editing into shots. Think of these sections as somewhat like edit courses, except they involve shooting targets after editing, which adds a whole different layer to it and really carries over to your piece control drills quite a bit. For the piece control side of things, these scenarios are quite similar to those in Raiders map, except this map does have a lot of different scenarios, which are obviously helpful to learn. Basically, it just has a bunch of scenarios that Raiders map doesn't, and vice versa. Overall, this map is another fantastic addition to a piece control practice routine, so I definitely recommend you give it a shot as well. As always, I'll put the code up on screen right now so you can check it out. So with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for the actual maps in this video. For the remainder of the video, what we'll be doing is basically going over a couple of general tips I have for improving your piece control that aren't specific maps, more so just stuff I learned when trying to improve my own piece control and helping others improve theirs. And starting this off, my first tip is to try and practice your piece control every time you get on. Getting really good at piece control is one of those things that takes a lot of consistency and a lot of patience. And a lot of people get super excited, they start grinding tons of piece control for a day or two, and then they get bored of it and stop entirely. The biggest key here is just to be consistent with your practice, and that often means taking some time every time you get on to practice your piece control. I personally find piece control practice to serve as a really good warm-up, especially for the bonus fact that it kind of gets the techniques in your head right before you start playing. But really, the biggest tip here is just to find some way to be consistent with your practice and consider doing it every time you hop on the game, just so you know exactly when you're going to practice every time. Moving on from that, my next tip is one that'll help you carry over your piece control practice into real fights, and that's to do 1v1s with an emphasis on piece control. What I recommend you do is find a friend who is also trying to improve their piece control and jump into a build fight map together. From there, you should both go into the fight with the idea of specifically going for piece control moves rather than going for the kill in any way you possibly can like you would in a typical 1v1. By doing this, you can get used to flowing your piece control moves in different situations, and this will help you a ton when it comes to carrying over your piece control into real games. Also, if you need to find someone to 1v1, then feel free to check out my Discord server as well. All you've got to do is join the server, select your region, and you'll be added to a bunch of different chats where you can find players for tournaments, arena, 1v1s, or basically anything else in your region. The link to that is going to be near the top of the description if you want to give it a shot. You can also do this method with a regular 1v1 if you don't have someone to play with, simply by thinking about piece control moves while you're doing the 1v1 and going for them specifically. Except it is a lot more difficult because the other player is going to be focused on killing you by any means possible while you're focused on piece control. However, that method can totally work if you don't have friends who are working on piece control. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to master piece control in Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 4. Overall, by using all these maps and following the strategies I've discussed in this video, you should find yourself able to crank out some really solid piece control moves consistently and winning way more fights as a result. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. And if you're hitting that subscribe button, then be sure to hit that notification bell as well, that way you're notified every time I post a new tips and tricks video. As well as that, guys, consider using code TECHO in the item shop if you want to show some extra support. It's 100% free for you and it seriously helps me out a ton. As always, thank you so much to everyone who's using it. But with that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.